mistakes and maybe refine what they did yesterday. Because honestly, I love the fact that they tried these big picks, these cheese picks yesterday up against South Africa, right? I mean, I remember the Alpha pick. I remember the Sylvana pick as well, an Imperial Justice combo with the Spear of Alpha. That unfortunately didn't really work out for them. But again, it all comes down to how Mauritius will draft as well. We've been talking about how great the drafts have been in match number one. Hopefully, we get a little bit of that for Mauritius here with their roster.
Yep. We love it. I'm going to try my best with this. It's Jin, Dragneel, Dark Master, Arahuz, Malekith, and Lil Jeff.
Lil Jeff.
Lil Jeff. We got Lil Jeff, man. I love the productions part of it too, man. Name's Jeff.
Bro.
It's Lil Jeff. That's what it is.
It's Lil Jeff. It ain't just Jeff, bro.
It ain't just Jeff. We had a Billy earlier. We had a just Billy. But we got Lil Jeff. And again, because we don't have that much background on these players, we don't exactly know what roles are going to be playing or what. Because we even saw a swap earlier when we had an idea of like, okay, Elysis is going to go here, Dark Prime's the jungle. But then they did a swap. And that's what I like about this because it adds some of that complexity or some of the surprise, like between the teams, the rosters that they have, that they're still capable, of course, like switching roles and switching things up. So can't wait to see how Mauritius plays and to see what they pull out, because even having the interview earlier with Pimp My World, man, that we got the answer about the Hanzo, and like we were thinking about it. And that's the thing, these teams, from different parts of Africa here, obviously they go through skims and they know each other pretty well. And you learn what those pocket picks, what those some of those top globals that they have. And, who's to say that for Mauritius over here, for one of these players here, they, are probably going to get respect banned out too. And I think that's fun for us, when we were going through the bans. And yeah, there's still like the staples, that pop out here and there. But those target bans are fun to see.
I'm glad you brought that up because honestly, we were talking about, well, I was about to mention in match number one that, we did get to see Senegal, but we didn't get to see Mali yesterday. So we do have a little bit of data when it comes down to Senegal, how they like to draft, how they like to play. But I guess what the point I was about to bring up in match number one is with that data, Mali is a bit of a double-edged sword where, they don't have a lot of, sample data for Senegal to actually read out as well. But then we got to the interview and Pimp My World revealed that, the community is really, really small and they actually like to scrim each other a lot. So that's what I'm expecting here as well from Mauritius, right? Even though for us, we don't really have a lot of like data as to what they like to play, those, pocket picks, maybe some more Hanzos, some more of those Harleys come over. Maybe not the exact same picks, but you know what I'm trying to get at. The cheese picks for them, specifically their comfort prior, maybe their one-trick pick. But we have seen this Namibia roster just yesterday. It still seems like it's going to be the same lineup. Robin, Spider, 911, Wakao, LeBron, Jimmy, and ASF Demon.
It's a little Jeff versus Jimmy.
Jimmy.
That's what we're going to have.
It's Jimmy with a quote, right? It's Jimmy quote.
Jimmy quote. And then
Jimmy quote.
Oh man. We're looking up at this. It makes me remember yesterday for Namibia, they struggled right in the games that they had against South Africa. That's where we really saw them kind of deal with some of the pressure that South Africa played with early on, and it was very momentum-based, snowball-based. And so for this time around, even for Wakao LeBron, like this is where we need to see, I feel like, him step a little bit. I know we saw the Vexana locked in for Wakao LeBron yesterday, but unfortunately, he wasn't able to really like pop off the way you're kind of expecting some of the mid laners to do. So maybe there can be some adjustment there. And I think Spider 911 in the gold lane, if they're still going in those same roles, right? We're just going to assume that's the information we had from yesterday. They're still going to go there. Spider 911 had a very difficult time in the gold lane. And that wasn't his fault or anything. It's just the way that South Africa played yesterday, watching them, it was that very just kind of brawl it out, put the pressure on who we needed to, and it happened to be on Spider 911's lane. And so, with that, those are the adjustments I'm going to be looking at here specifically. And even for Demon, like Demon, if I remember, was in the XP lane. He had some difficulties to kind of like go through and make things work. But, overall, that's a thing. Those are the things I'm going to be looking for, at least on both sides here. is really how have those adjustments been made, and specifically too, I think for Cal LeBron, like I said, mid lane matchup, at least in this one. Let's see how it unfolds. I feel like, too, with mid lanes, we've been seeing a lot of Louis Yi pop up, right? We've seen even the Angela mid lane popped up yesterday. And this is a time where, again, depending on the flavor that they bring to the table, they switch things up a little bit here and we see some impact. I would love it, actually, this time, Mirko, if they ban out the Louis Yi. Like, that doesn't come up in this matchup because we've seen it picked up so many times. And I would love some of that change to happen in the mid lane and then see how they rotate or, build out a composition based on that.
The previous game alone, we did see the chip completely get ignored in the early game, right? I mean, the first phase. So maybe the Lo Yi for Africa has just been not really that. Well, maybe for the Lo Yi, it's been super prio, but for the chip, it's not as prio. So with the Lo Yi being so prio, definitely expect that to be banned out as well. I agree with you. I think that's something that we might be able to expect for this matchup. The Yuzong as well. As we get into the later stage of the African regional qualifiers, I feel like a lot of these prio picks will be shifting back and forth. Like some of these picks, even though they're prio in different regions, currently based on the stats that we have, especially after the matches that have been streamed that we have casted, especially the Yuzong, I think has been more effective than the Lo Yi actually. Really good in the brawls. You have so much damage to play with. You're very good at initiating, very good at disengaging as well, and you do good in both trading and also the all-ins, right? You get that damage over time with your passive, but even in the trades, just with the Furious Dive and the Petrify, if you can even get the Dragon Tail down, it's just a lot of solid damage. And what's best about the Yuzong is the fact that you technically don't even need to go for a lot of damage items. You could just be happy with a Hunter Strike, then go full tank, and you'll still deal a lot of damage from your passive, from the base damage that you have in your kit, and even the sustain. If you have a healer, sure, you can go Oracle, you can amplify the healing that you have in your kit, and also amplify the healing that you have in your composition with a healer in your composition. But there's just so many ways to utilize the Yuzong, I feel, right? I mean, this is a pick that's been finding a lot of success.
What's scary about it?
Yeah, but like I mean, in the Philippines as well.
You don't even need the Hunter Strike, man. Like if you just have the Fury Hammer, like Yuzong is scary enough in lane early on.
That's true.
Like that's all you need, and that's why we see them bully so hard in the lane early on.
Terizla too, right? All he needs is a Fury Hammer. Sometimes, actually, sometimes on the Terizla, I've seen so many different XP laners just go for full tank, and they still get 7 kills. Ridiculous base damage for a lot of these XPs, especially the meta ones. But unfortunately, Terizla hasn't really been finding like success in regional qualifiers. It's very weird.
Like to say that too is weird because yesterday alone, I think if I remember right, it was a 4-man penalty zone setup that we saw. But and like the setup potential is there, but for some reason, Terizla is not working. I feel like the way that they want it to work, or that we've seen it fit into a lot of these teams on this side of the world, of course. And that's not to say Terizla like isn't falling off or anything. I think he's still a great pick, still fits really well into some of the teams. But I think at the way as we are now getting a good sense of how things are played here for the Africa regionals, maybe in this in this like style of play, Terizla just like he's so slow. Like just I mean, I'm for sure for all the people that have played Terizla, like how slow he feels. Like he is a dude with like a huge mace, and he walks like the body of Smith that he is, right? So and I feel like the play style, and even just hearing about some of the bans that we saw where it's like Hanzo, very quick. Leo Mord was picked up very quick in the jungle, right? They love their Matildas because mobility just seems to be the answer for a lot of these teams here. And so I'm just feeling like I'm still wondering what is going to be the answer to solve the Yuzong problem. And part of that can be ban them out. Ban the Yuzong out. Actually, just use one of the bans. If this is the case, where like for all these teams included, Yuzong is just the guy to go in the XP lane. Maybe just ban him out. Bring something else to the table, because we have yet to see a team really find the answer in that 1v1 matchup with the Yuzong. And the reason why we talk about it so much, some people might be wondering, why do we talk about the Yuzong so much? It's actually just such a powerful value pick. Not just for here in the Africa region, but overall. So it's like, how do you actually stop that from happening? Because once the XP lane is lost, or that advantage is gained early on, and he's one of the heroes that has that capability to do it so early on, it's hard to get a grasp on that part of the game again, especially when we're talking about turtles. Like, we saw what happened before. He didn't even have Black Dragon form. Like, just the fact that you have a Yuzhong, his threat alone by just being pre-level 4 is scary enough. And we're talking about, again, having one single item, Fury Hammer, really kind of, and with a Petrify, allows him to do things early game that maybe some XP laners aren't able to do, right? So again, we're kind of theorizing here what could happen in this next matchup between Mauritius and Namibia. So they could actually kind of unfold whatever the game plan is going to be. Namibia, like we said, we want to see this adjustment from yesterday, the struggles that they had, and how they've improved, at least for this matchup. Mauritius, we don't have information on, at least to see them, on the live stream and play it out here. So, that's why really we're kind of throwing things like on the wall for Mauritius to see what is going to stick for them eventually. And at least now we know where the kind of meta is, even with the interviews. Again, something that's been nice to get the insight from the interviews is how a lot of these players, a lot of these teams, they know each other pretty well, right? Because even from, the message, I got a message from Kaizo earlier, and he was talking about in the message that, it is a smaller region, and some of the competition there obviously has to be kind of organized, most likely between the players and the teams, and they kind of have to figure out their own way to organize that stuff, the scrims. And then we even have to talk about, like, when they scrim, if they're scrimming people from outside the region, then the ping becomes a factor. Like, they're playing, with that as well. So there's a lot of respect here from me to these teams, that how they prepare, how do they include themselves in actually getting ready for competition like this. And, seeing it unfold, like, their play style has been really fun. I know we're getting towards the end as well. Like, eventually we finished the third match today. We're wrapping up some of that qualifier already, because again, games are happening offline. Teams are already qualifying for Morocco out there, for Casablanca. And that's the thing. I think seeing this version of esports for MLBB is nice. It's refreshing to see. We said this yesterday. And I think there's still a lot that these teams are actually going to be able to show us here, Mirko.
It's going to be very interesting to see how these teams, again, play into each other. You were talking about how, the dimensions of their drafts, how it's going to work out for them. And yeah, I think we've already gotten it confirmed as well, by the way, for our final match today. Senegal, the winner of the previous match up against Mali, will be going up against the winners of the second match yesterday, or actually the third match yesterday, of Ivory Coast versus Djibouti. So Senegal will be taking on Djibouti later on. That's a fun fact for you guys, if you guys are waiting for that third match, especially after seeing Senegal improve that much.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what I'm waiting for this match as well. Namibia, how much have they evolved? Like you were talking about, the way that they played yesterday, it was already a very unique style. Unfortunately, I feel like it's a bit more desynced, right, though, for Namibia. Like, for Senegal, at least we were able to see, up against Tunisia, yeah, they got clean, they were also swept, but it was a different kind of sweep. It was a sweep where they were just out-executed, but at least in the draft, they were able to hold their own. Meanwhile, though, for Namibia, it's a different type of holding their own. They did hold their own in, the level of cheese, I would say. But I think for Namibia, especially in a match like this, I think they have to go back to the fundamentals. I think they have to go back to these prio picks. And we were talking about the low Yi being left open. But especially if the chip gets left open, like we saw in the first match, pick it up. The chip is going to be a valuable pick. And it seems, for right now at least, it does seem like for Namibia, they want to leave the chip open for now. That's a Minotaur and a Mathilda ban from the side of Mauritius, and a Ling ban. So, hey, we were talking about that respect, talking about how these teams actually have played against one another, scrimmed against one another, and so far the jungle is getting really, really nailed down, bro. Ling and Granger.
Yeah, and so, that's information right there. And again, we haven't seen Mauritius play, but those bans already tell us a lot. The fact that they use two bans to kind of target over here against Mauritius. So that's a Kufra ban. A lot of roams being banned out. A lot of roam potential, you know, over here to deal with Namibia. So first, well, they got to get one more ban. Let's see if this is actually still going to be a jungle. Okay, it's going to be a Diggy banned out here. We'll see what they want to pick up priority-wise. Again, Luoyi still open, Chip still open, so many of these value picks, but still, even with that being said, we could see them swing for something else. You know, something up their play style that they want to go. I think still safest, Luoyi could still work in any team composition right now. You could literally just pick it up for diversion alone. But Mauritius, they could have another plan up their sleeve, and that they do. Whoa, interesting. Because of the Diggy being banned out, they're like, you know what? Let's just first pick full send Atlas. Let's just go for
risky move.
Because, yeah, risky move. They don't have to deal with a Diggy, but I was actually expecting them to just take the Luoyi because they could have taken the Atlas later.
Same. I think there might be a priority for the side of Namibia, right, for that Atlas pick. That's why they went for the Diggy ban. Maybe that was what they were looking for. And technically, it would also still line up to what we expect from Namibia, especially after yesterday's game. They're really, you know, fond of their own combos, their unique combo. Yesterday was the Imperial Justice of Savannah that they can utilize with the Spear of Alpha. And technically, with the Diggy ban, that does allow something like an Alpha to come in. But as I said earlier, I want to see Namibia go back to the prio picks, go back to what is meta. And so far, they've done exactly that. But on the other side, Mauritius, they're taking the Namibia route that we saw yesterday. They're going for perhaps their comfort, their version of pocket picks. CC is pretty meta, but the Melissa here, up against the Luoyi and the Terizla, and also the Alpha to, again, I don't know if this is a deny pick or if it's actually good for them. Because if they just pick the Atlas to deny the Atlas coming in for the opposing team because of the Diggy ban, then it'll be very, very risky to pull off. And now we get the Hanabi as well. All right, there's still a little bit of Namibia in them, you know? Like, we're not seeing the full prio. We're seeing a mix of what we saw yesterday, plus that disciplined prio route.
You know when you said earlier, like, maybe this is the time for them to like go to the foundations and start there. Maybe this is it, man. Maybe this is pure foundational like comfort picks for them that they have been practicing for a long time, or just some of their favorite heroes. You know, this could end up working out. The fact that there's a good ban too. Alpha comes out. You talked about the possibility of Namibia wanting to pull out the Alpha, especially given the situation with the first phase. So now he's taken out of the picture, and I still think that for Namibia's lineup, another Hanzo is just wrecking the Africa region, by the way. Like, that is just the hero so far that we have seen banned out constantly. But going back to it, Namibia needs to have at least one more pretty tanky hero over here to deal with some of that front to back because of the Atlas, especially across from them, right? And I think, again, Hanabi, not a hero that we see often. You could say the same almost about a Melissa. Melissa has seen obviously more competitive play overall in history, I would say, in comparison to Hanabi, at least especially in recent times, recent meta. And there's another assassin ban. Oh, these are a whole bunch of assassin bans for the jungle being taken out. So really, this is where these picks really come out and round out the lineup from the first phase. Well, this kind of fits it. This kind of fits what I was saying. You know, have a little more tankiness. They pull out the Balmond, so they're going to be spinning to win. And then with this two hovered heroes over here, the Kugura is going to be locked in. Roger, jungle, when you already also have a Melissa, this is a very damage loaded. If these two are locked in, would be interesting because there's so much damage potential, especially from the Kugura. There's the Roger, so that's locked in. It is going in the jungle. Now the Kugura. I'm happy about this because this is also something different that we were looking for in the mid lane.
Absolutely.
You know? And it is locked in. So this is locked in. Very interesting lineup already from Mauritius. Now this Camarilla, we saw a glimpse of this yesterday. And I think still, if they roll with this, the fact too that they have a penalty zone, a Luoyi combination, and then a Hanabi, this could actually be very deadly. But let's see what is locked in first before we talk more about it. The Belric, we were talking about this going to the XP lane, but this would be a good roam. This would be a good roam. They're trying to decide too, man. Okay, this makes sense. Carmilla locked in. Curse of Blood helps. Hey, Curse of Blood helps this entire lineup so well. And hopefully they can utilize the overlapping of these ultimates and abilities to their advantage for Namibia, because on paper it works great. But now I'm wondering about some of these interesting picks. Again, this was an Atlas first pick from Mauritius.
Yeah, I agree, man. I mean, the Carmilla definitely is the better pick on paper, right? But I just really wanted the Belleric to finally go in the Rome, especially with the Vengeance. By the way, 2 Vengeances from Charizla and also the Carmilla. So at least in that department, they still have what it takes to go up against the Melissa and also the Roger. Technically also the CC, right? There's going to be so much DPS coming down, and the Vengeance will be able to get a lot of value. We were talking about the Vengeance choice as well for the Charizla in match 1, game 1. And I still wanted to see the Flicker over the Vengeance for that particular game on the Charizla. But I think in this game, it's a bit safer to go for the Vengeance. That Melissa and Roger, they're going to have to be very, very careful. And not only will they have to layer their CC, because there's a Hanabi and a Purify for the Lo Yi, they're going to have to layer their damage properly. Because if they go all in, into the Vengeance, into the damage AoE of the Lo Yi, the Hanabi, and then the execute of the lethal counter, they're in for a bad time.
Well, we're going to find out here. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the second match of the evening, of the day. Again, it's Mauritius versus Namibia in this best of 3. This is game number 1. Both teams getting it situated. And also, real quick, as we wait to see them, how they rotate here, quick look at the emblems, too. I love it. The fact that, you know, Jin Dragneel has the focusing mark. They're going to go ahead and cross map jungle here. So they're going to mirror each other across. It looked like both teams were ready to actually do this, though. You know, the way that they kind of rotated already. But this is, again, familiarity most likely between these teams that have scrimmed against each other and everything else. So they just kind of cross jungle for now. But still, again, this is interesting because emblem-wise, for what Mauritius has, I love the fact that they have a focusing mark on Jin Dragneel, because of that extra 6% will help with the burst potential windows they're looking for with the lineup. Again, this is a Kagura, one of the mages that has great burst, but we just don't see that often anymore because of how mechanical it is. So we can already see them rotating, of course, up here on this top side of the map, but 30 seconds away from the first major objective, that first turtle coming up. We'll have to see exactly how they play this out, because remember, too, you're up against a Balmond. Jimmy has the Balmond. We know how well a Balmond can... Oh, wow, look at the damage already, right? The poke damage. But we know how well a Balmond can secure objectives, right? It works so well, especially with the Retribution and the Ultimate. They're paired up. So I think the work is going to be cut out for Malekith as well, Malekith, with this Roger. So you can already see the poking happening. Jimmy's got the level 4. Uh-oh.
Whoa. Lethal counter going to be used up as well. Good perfect match to set up Robin, who's now going to be caught. Malekith goes in for the Lycan form. Vengeance popped as well. Robin still trying to escape right now. Lycan bounce is ready for Malekith. He decides not to go for it. Jumps back to the human form, as that's a rotation from Wakal LeBron as well for the mid lane. The see from both these teams, they want to take it slow for the first turtle. Just hovering over. Remember, Ara has already used the flicker in the bottom lane. Now they're going to go straight for the turtle. Dragneel, not level 4 just yet. Jimmy is, though. Now jumps in, and Malekith is still able to get the retribution. That's a flicker from Lil Jeff. Actually, not flicker, just a flame shot and the yin yang overturn. Luckily, he was able to disengage, and it seems for now Mauritius get the dub.
Man, it's like very close encounter that was. You know, even just missing the lethal counter. Like, Jimmy wasn't able to get that kill he was looking for from Lil to find Lil Jeff, but still, overall, no one going down just yet. So pretty much relatively even across the board. And as both teams kind of get as situated after that whole objective dance, you know, they find things off. Look at the top, though.
Yeah, first blood. Good gank. Right with the stun onto the Melissa. That's something you can punish of the Melissa. Meanwhile, on the bottom lane, a solo kill. D-Man takes out Ara. A whole lot of damage just with the penalty zone, I believe, and the Vengeance. The DPS punishment.
This is so interesting, right? Like, Vengeance instead of the flicker. I know you talked about it a little bit earlier on, but this, like, not having that flicker on a Charizla, it's... Oh, hold on.
Yin-Yang overturn used up, and he gets stunned up. One more rotation should do it, and he finds it, but Lil Jeff is still able to survive. Malekith now on the chase onto Robin, has the Lycan pounce, and that's the Vengeance coming down, but Fatal Links locks him out for Malekith to pick up the kill, and that's finally Mauritius on the board. Meanwhile, up top as well, it's a 2v1 situation where Dark Master is still able to survive, and in the bottom lane, Ara finally getting the better of D-Man in the trade But he walks back with that hammer of his, swings it back. Aura goes for the ultimate. That's a penalty zone as well. The curtain call still on him, and Aura is still looking to sustain out with the Brave Smite. One last hit though. It's sticking down. Diversion into the bottom lane. Jimmy as well with the rotation, has the lethal counter, goes into the retribution, but it's out of range. Dispersion, rotation, Aura with a flicker out, and Jimmy cannot go for him.
Oh my goodness, that has to just feel bad. Like, they were so close multiple times and they were not able to get him. So, you know, it's tough for Jimmy because that's twice now that his target has not been able to get caught from that lethal encounter. But he will go ahead and just get this turtle. He's going to work on it unless there's something that can be said. Jin does have the Fatal Links available, so you're going to try to zone him out here.
Robin's going to be caught in the Fatal Links right into the damage from that penalty zone, though, into the back line, and now they get obliterated by the AoE. Namibia collapses on Mauritius, 2 members down, and a turtle for free.
Okay, well, that's going to find themselves. Namibia now finding a good little lead at Dark Master. Going to go down in a 1v1 up top.
Also in the mid lane, Robin. Wow, that's a roamer who picks up the kill just like that. Malekith though, Lycan pounce the purify from Wakal LeBron. He's gonna go for the chase, and he will be able to find a kill. But Jimmy now looks for the chase with Robin, gets a stun down, but this time no Fatal Links from Dragon Neil. It's just gonna be a trade.
Spider 911 is having a good game, you know, sitting at 2-0, much better than we saw him previously, you know, have a time yesterday. He had so much pressure to deal with. They can making a play here. Demon
still able to escape for now. The curtain calls, though, is slowing him down. Vengeance and the DPZ. Well played by Demon, but look at that. Perfect match. Trying to find an angle to go for the Fatal Links, but unfortunately, still on cooldown. Diversion to try to help D-Man in the bottom lane. Meanwhile, Spider has rotated into the mid lane just to shove that wave. Wakal LeBron, what happened in the bottom lane? Did Iraq go for a dive and get punished? It seems as that's it, Robin. I'm gonna go on to Dragneo, still able to flicker out to safety. And Namibia still now winning out of the trades.
Yeah, what happened to Aura? Like, he didn't have the flicker, he just kind of dove, I guess. And that's gonna be the turret in the mid lane going down.
2-man Curse of Blood. Oh, little Jeff is forced to use the umbrella forward and gets caught by the 4 members waiting for him. Diversion up top. Oh no! Dark Master can he pop the go away in time? And even if he does, the range damage just gets him. Jimmy left alone, isolated, and will be traded back. But that's a 2-for-1. Make it 3 with the turret, tier 1 in the mid lane.
Man, that diversion is being utilized from Wakal LeBron so well for this game. And Malekith here, Robin.
He does have the corrosion side. He can actually go for the slows. Malekith goes in for the Lycan Pounce. Very interesting dive because the Aegis is still ready and Malekith should be caught. Robin doesn't have the Curse of Blood, not just yet, so he won't be able to fully chase Malekith. But that has given them enough space to go for the turtle. It's up, but it seems they might just want to let it go. They might just want the Lord early here. Nice.
Yeah, I think, you know, with this turtle being up here, they might just go ahead and start it, but right now, big item pickup as well from Wakal LeBron. He gets the Divine Glaive. At this point, look at the damage already, right? Even on Jin, big key item pickup in the damage department. Look at the push, though, happening up top. Already working on that tier 2. They might just be happy. You know what? Give up that turtle. We don't need it. Let's get the objectives. Hold on. Whoa, Jimmy. What? It looked like Jimmy kind of went off on there. He gets taken down. They trade the turtle, though. So this could be troublesome. Now, I thought, yeah, they were able to get that tier 2, but yeah, Jimmy looks like he took a walk down.
I would really love to see what happened there, right? If that was a tactical move by Jimmy. If he actually like tried to tank up the turret shots just so that the mini waves could keep on crashing down. Fatal Links, but look at the CC immune. That's a problem. 3-man Curse of Blood with the penalty zone used up, and that's gonna be D-Man who pops into Vengeance, but Lycan Pounce will be able to execute him. Meanwhile, look at the free hits coming down from Spider. Was able to zone Malekith away with the basic attacks. 3 members traded for 2, and that's another tier 2 falling, this time in the mid lane. Another trade though for Aura. The side of the bottom lane still going at it. Diversion used up into the bottom lane. Maybe going to try to look for a kill, a punishment onto Aura, who's definitely overextending here. Doesn't have the Vengeance to escape, but can just dash away to safety right there with the yo-yos.
Yeah, just dashing out, man. Spider, like I said, Spider 911 having a hell of a game on this Hanabi. The last time I feel like I've seen a Hanabi have this good of a game maybe brings me back to another region, NACT. And I think it was Ooga Booga or something like that. Someone, oh, hold on.
Fatal Links only connecting onto one member, and he is still able to just get out. And what happened to the forces of Mauritius? 3 members completely obliterated. Big damn indeed. Right into the bottom lane, tier 1 they go. Oh, an interesting engage there, nice.
Interesting engage, and this is just pure punishment. Namibia is going to go ahead and continue on with the snowball. This is already snowball massively momentum in their favor too that they can work on, because as I was saying with Spider 911, look at the damage potential. They can tank a lot of this too. Just having Robin up front with his Carmilla and really just trying to bait things out. Again, this is 2 vengeances that they have here for their side, and they can play around that. It's really difficult for even Dark Master to kind of fight right now with this Melissa, so far behind, you know, in terms of just the spread when it comes to these items. So right now, Namibia is going to go ahead and start up the Lord. I'm not sure if Jin Dragneel actually wants to even approach this for Vision. We'll see if they decide to, as they're going to get zoned out a little bit here. Spotted out, Demon. He's fine up the front. Then that's Jimmy securing the Lord. But Jin,
forced to flicker out, getting overturned though. Lil Jeff finally getting a trade down, assassinating Wakao LeBron, but it's very, very low. Look at the backup coming down from Malekith, and also penalty zone, not able to connect right there as the dash is able to get him out. What happened to Dark Master? He popped in the goalway, but he was the one who went away. Malekith getting a trade down onto Jimmy. That's a 3-man Fatal Links, but nobody's there to follow it up, not just yet right now as AoE comes down with the Lil Jeff just dashed into his demise. But look at this now with the Lycan Pounce. Malekith able to find the shutdown. That's a double, making a triple as it's only traded for 2. A complete wipeout as the Lord is almost going to be able to take Dragneel down in the mid lane. Swings the War Axe onto that base turret, but Malekith finally gets rid of it.
Mirko, literally, Jin Dragneel was like all part of the plan. That's one of those moments where you're just like, yeah, that was part of my plan. And he ends up getting a great Fatal Links. That was a 3-member Fatal Links.
Yeah.
And then Lil Jeff backed it up finally with that burst potential. And then Malekith comes in, and I think, you know, oh, he's on the hunt again. Well, Kyle LeBron should be fine. Rest of the team shows up. So this is a moment to breathe for Mauritius. They've gotten themselves to at least whittle down that gold lead that was almost out of control. Again, we're talking about snowball potential here. This could possibly look like another fight.
Jin Dragneel now with a 2-man Fatal Links. Robin still able to escape a little bit there. Penalty zone gonna be used up as well. Onto no one, it seems there. Just trying to use it as zone. They are able to get 1 member. That's a Vengeance. Pop 2, Naisu, by Demon. Maybe anticipating another re-engage coming from Mauritius.
All right. Like I said, Mauritius found some good moments, and we saw a glimpse of this yesterday too. So the best thing that I would love to see them is kind of just keep things under control, because when you start to turn the tables, you know, on the enemy team that has been leading for so long, it's very easy to overstep and get overzealous. So right now for Mauritius, they have to kind of stay calm and collected, because really, even with things happening here, with the setups coming out, Malekith able to really kind of pop off on this Roger and kind of be that saving grace right now, Dark Master just is not where he needs to be on the Melissa pick. And even if he does get to that point, they still have to play around the fact that you have 2 Vengeances here for Namibia. And right now, as they kind of just clear things up, wait for this Lord to take, they're going to get in position here. Malekith, though, will find a Robin. I think they're just going to spot them out, though. No commitments. But this could very well lead into a big Lord dance between these 2 teams as they get set up. Again, it's still a minor gold lead for Namibia. Nice poking here.
Oh, he goes in onto Wakao LeBron, almost gets taken down. Curse of Blood onto 2 members, locking him down, and Lil Jeff is forced to back away. My goodness, Dark Master, he went forward and got obliterated by Spider just like that, and Robin doing a good job at just zoning Lil Jeff away from this Lord. A diversion into the flanks, maybe able to catch Lil Jeff there in the back. Dispersion not used just yet. Wakao LeBron really waiting for it, finding it, and my goodness, what an amazing flank from Wakao LeBron. Ara going for the dash, but now gets caught in the dispersion of Wakao LeBron. They get the Lord, they get the base turret, and they get a wipeout as well. They might as well get game number 1 in the 14th minute.
Woo. Man, what a play, what a setup. Well, Kyle LeBron as well, popping off at the end there. Great to see the adjustments made from Namibia that we were talking about leading into this match, Mirko. It looks like they were able to pull it off and make things work for them. Again, just the lineup that they drafted, the way they executed it, it all worked out. And I think even to say that there was a moment where you're wondering what is happening with some of the plays that were being made. I know, some of the solo kills too that we didn't get a glimpse of, but it was just so tough. I feel like for Darkmaster as well, Darkmaster and Aura in their respective lanes. Like, and you're talking about XP lane and you're talking about gold lane. And when both of those are shut down for the majority of the game, if not the whole game, it's tough to come back, even when you're making plays. Again, Malekith he had a great KDA on the Roger. He had great damage, but it can't just be that, like you can't just rely on a jungle Roger to carry you through towards that later portion of the game. And even with some of the setup potential that we were seeing, with Jhin, and then the follow-up having a Kagura, it just, like, in essence, if it was not the lead, the deficit that they were trying to work against, I think it could have been some pretty good team fights in their favor. But there was no answer, man, for even Spider 911. And that's what I'm saying is I like the fact that there was this adjustment, improvement in game even for Spider 911, because yesterday he was the one that was having a hell of a time in the gold lane. And this time around, he picks up a Hanabi that we don't typically see very often, except for very specific, very niche players, that like that Hanabi pick, and it worked really well for them. So just overall, the lineup that they had, even this time around with the Carmilla, having that for Robin, things worked out really well for them. Wakao LeBron, like I said, it was nice to see him make his adjustments from yesterday. I felt his impact in this game, and that was something that was missing yesterday, specifically from Wakao LeBron. So, like, his game in game one was on point. That's exactly what he needed to do. The diversions was a big, crucial point. And that's why I'm saying, man, I was kind of confused because when you go back to the draft, I was expecting any team, really, it doesn't matter which team it is, but if that Luo Yi is open, there's so much you can do with that right now, that hero. Exactly. And to take an Atlas over the Luo Yi was the start of the mistake, basically. Because Atlas could be picked up hell in second phase. No one's going to ban Atlas out for the most part. No one's going to go. But because of the Diggy was banned out, in a mindset, it's like, oh, well, let's just take the Atlas because we got great setup potential. And there was. Jhin, he had some pretty good sets. Don't get me wrong. But what would have been great is if they had a Luo Yi and an Atlas later on. Imagine that combination.
Without a Diggy. Imagine that without a Diggy, right? I mean, the crazy chances of a flanking Atlas with a perfect match and then the Fatal Links as well to layer on a damage and the CC that would already be in front of them. But yeah, I definitely agree with you, man. It really feels like the Atlas was definitely forced out. Maybe Namibia has a banger Atlas player as well, and maybe that's why they banned out the Diggy, and that's maybe why they decided to deny it away in the first pick. But I have to agree, even if it's a deny, even if the Atlas player on the side of Namibia is just too good, you got to respect the prior heroes, man. And yesterday, I think that was definitely what was seen up against South Africa for Namibia. South Africa respected the Luo Yi. They didn't get Wakao LeBron on the Luo Yi at all, and Wakao LeBron was then forced on a very safe pick. Right, and it definitely feels like Wakao LeBron is way more comfortable on a hero like this. And a hero that can actually be creative, using the diversions to create different angles for the team and for himself to attack. Compared to, on the Vexana, when he played 2 games yesterday on the Vexana, and it really felt like he was just trying to react to every play that was made by the enemy team. He needs to be proactive. I think that's number one. And I think at this point of the meta, that's all the mid laners that are meta. All the mid laners that are able to carry, all the mid laners that are meta currently are the mid laners who can take the game into their own hands, right? The Valentina, the Faramis, even the Varia in a way, right? You get really creative with how you deal damage, with how you attack as well from different angles, with your range and with your Astral Echo. So that's definitely what I want to see in the next game. Maybe Mauritius can adjust, because honestly, there were glimpses of brilliance here and there from the side of Mauritius as well. They actually did wipe Namibia out at one point in that game. They had the momentum shift back in their favor. So if they can get a composition that maybe is stronger in the early game and lets them be creative and proactive in the early game, like that Luo Yi that you mentioned, I think it'll be great for them. Get those angles and attack Namibia from all the places that they don't expect.
Yeah, definitely. Again, it was nice to see both teams try to execute a draft that I would say you don't typically see in current meta. Like, I mean, there was heroes obviously that pop up there that we do see regularly, Luo Yi especially, and why there's a reason why I'm all for testing the boundary, the limits of the meta. As a Gord main, that was my whole premise throughout the whole thing. Playing him at like super high ranks and everything. Yeah. I love that, and that's why I'm so happy now that he's actually meta. Like you can actually fit in the meta. But there are reasons why you also have to respect the meta, and Luo Yi right now is just one of those. It's either the Luo Yi or the chip. Like, at least currently, that's what you want to kind of like prioritize and go for if they are left open. And the teams, I would say the teams that have been picking up the Luo Yis have been having a better chance at winning some of these games, just because, again, how strong diversion is alone. And like we saw at the end from Wokow LeBron, the fact that you can send himself or anyone from the team or the entire team to parts of the map and then just kind of like collapse down on even a retreat. That's what we saw, and utilize the wave of minions to get the passive and the links off, and then get the bonus damage off. Mm-hmm. It's so powerful. It's so strong. Like, what other heroes can do this? There's very few heroes in the current meta in MLBB in general where you kind of have like this global impact. And again, that's why Mozcom was such a top pick for the gold lane. Exactly. Until teams really started to shut him down because. I know you still have to land Spear of Destruction, but like the fact that you can literally like send yourself to wherever you want on the map if you land it, especially around crucial team fights, around objectives, and you're most likely going to hit it, that's such a huge impact. But then, Luo Yi is different because it's a guaranteed. And not only is it a guaranteed to send diversion, but you can actually fake it out too. That's a whole nother layer of strategy. And we actually haven't seen so much of that. I know we've seen a little bit here and there from the teams here from from Africa regionals in general, but we see that so many times on our part of the world where teams will take the Luo Yi and they don't even send anyone. Like, sometimes they're just popping diversion. So it's a whole, if you think about it, it's a mind game on top of a mind game, and it's a layer upon layer of strategy. And, we're seeing glimpses of it. So, again, I said this earlier in the draft. I would just love to see some of the change where they ban Luo Yi out. Like, just ban Luo Yi out. Take it out. I love the fact that Kugura actually came to play in the mid lane. It was there. You see some of that variation we were talking about. So I think for most of these teams, and again, we have to respect the fact that these guys know each other better than we know them, right? There's a reason why they banned out the assassins multiple times for the junglers.
Granger and Ling.
Granger and Ling right off the bat. I think maybe let one of those slip through and at least use a ban slot for Luo Yi. I think start there, for any of these teams, actually.
I think at this point it's kind of strange to see, right? Because usually when we do see the Luo Yi pick open, it's picked up in the first phase and by the blue side, by the literal first pick. But the fact of the matter is, so far, I think in both of the matches, well, some of the games, Luo Yi has been picked in the first phase by blue side, first pick. But just earlier, we saw the big emphasis on the Atlas after the Diggy was banned out. So I think it's all about how they read each other. And I think it's about them not overthinking against each other. Because yes, you do know your opponents better than, obviously us. But at a certain point, these creative angles that you can find on the Luo Yi just get so ridiculous. You need to really respect it. Either by the way you play, you need to be very, very aware of which bushes the diversion can be used in. Or get something like a Novaria. Because sure, there are ways to actually go up against the Luo Yi, right? If you can check the bushes without actually opening up the map by yourself, without actually face checking into the bushes, then there is a way to go up against it. Usually, in our regions as well, Novaria is the way to actually go for these bush checks, right? You get so many ways to do it. I mean, the Astrosphere can get it done, even just the Astro Meteor too. You don't even need to use the Astro Echo, but then later on in the game, you wanna, take as much room as you can with the Astro Echo so that you can see if anybody is there. But yeah, there are ways to go up against this Luo Yi. So if you do not want to go up against it, you might not want to ban it as well. It's okay because there are ways to counter it, and I think they should lean into that. The fact is they didn't, right? They tried to out combo. They tried to just get a very specific way to win the game, which is that Fatal Links into Yin Yang Overturn into Melissa Muddles gameplay, which again can work, but it requires a very specific set of events, a very specific scenario to happen all in the way that you wanted it to, right? And on the Luo Yi, I think 9 out of 10 times, you're never going to get them in that kind of spot, especially when they have a Purify. And then a Hanabi as well, who is CC immune when she uses the Aegis, when she has any sort of shielding. It definitely was them overthinking, I think, right? And they were thinking definitely about the combos of their own synergy that they completely forgot about the enemy team composition that was focused on not just prio picks, but also focused on how to counter that exact synergy that they're relying on, that they're doubling down on. There's so much anti-CC, man. And on top of that, they also have the lethal counter that execute on top of the base damage and the poke damage that they already have. The Hanabi is great at dealing damage, but not great at chasing. And that's why I think the lethal counter is just a great tool to utilize. And then the penalty zone to lock them down in case they actually decide to fight.
I'm still surprised, to see a Terizla with a vengeance. And like, I was before we even got to the draft. I think that's when I was talking about Terizla feeling very slow. Dude, you take away Flicker, like, I don't know. I would feel like I have no speed at all because you're.
What about
just
CC
there.
Flicker? That's the exact opposite. She has so much mobility.
Too much, that's a little overkill in the mobility department. But like, and that's the thing is like, even Terizla with Vengeance, in theory, I guess 2 Vengeance being on that team for Namibia, it's like, well, they were kind of also doing that because of they had a Melissa across from them, but Darkmaster just never got to breathe really. And again, if you're gonna pick a Melissa, if you're gonna think about gold lane options, you also have to really consider what you're playing against, in terms of the roams, because and the way the meta is right now for a lot of gold laners is you need either to be really, really good at outplaying because there's going to be pressure, or you have to really rely on your roamers to kind of support you and help you out. But this is where the fine line between these great roamers and just good roamers are, because great roamers know when to be there for the gold lane, and they know exactly the timings when to rotate for the rest of the team and actually roam and be there for the objectives. Especially you can't just especially for Melissa. Like, you can't just leave Melissa.
No.
Or most gold lanes. Like, you can't. I feel like the only one you really could, off the top of my head, I'd say there's 2. Probably Claude, because he has BMI and he can clear lanes. He can clear them with the Blazing Duet. And maybe Harith, because Harith is the most OP right now, gold lane option, and you could literally 1v3. Like, we saw a glimpse of that even yesterday, so there's got to be some kind of adjustment there, because we got to look at the bigger picture here too. Like, the match between Mauritius and Namibia right now, but the thing is like, eventually, whatever teams are going to be ending up at the AEC in Casablanca, one of the teams there, and I know you know them also very well because of what you just previously casted, is obviously Egypt. Like, Egypt was already qualified, and those are players that have a ton of just international experience,
sure.
IESF alone, and the way that they've competed over there. And so when I'm actually watching some of these other teams throughout this qualifier, you can see like the way that they play. There's some inspirations there, the way that Egypt plays, because I remember when we were talking about, like, even in previous IESF with Egypt, or just watching them in other tournaments, it's a team that takes this play style that we've been seeing, and I would say Egypt is the team that has really refined it. It's taken that kind of controlled chaos that we talked about yesterday and makes it work for them, and they've really adapted to the meta, but they still have their essence of like these, I don't want to call them cheese picks, but they're like niche picks. They're very niche to this region, and they make it work out, So for me overall, that's been an amazing thing to see. And I'm just trying to look at the bigger picture here at the same time, because of these teams that are now eventually, you know, as we get through the rest of the day and then tomorrow as well, they're going to start qualifying. You have to think about what is facing them ahead of them in the competition, you know, and I think probably for most of these teams that are all familiar with each other, a lot of the eyes are going to be on what is Egypt doing? Like, what are they playing? What are they drafting? You know, unfortunately, we haven't been able to see the live stream for them, but we already know so much about those guys, right? So it's great to see these players as we now jump into the draft here for game number 2. Let's see if Mauritius can actually go ahead and adjust from this. We're seeing still that Ling band. This is probably going to be the Granger as well. There it is. I love it. Take out the Lo Yi.
Good adjustment. Ling Granger, though, still going to be bans for Namibia. I think if it ain't broke, don't fix it for them especially. They were able to make that composition work for themselves. They were able to just adjust to what Mauritius were picking up. But now they're on blue side. Now they get to dictate the matchup. Now they get to decide what to go for. And usually, we get to see the blue side go for the full respect bans, right? We don't usually get to see the red side do that. They were able to pull it off on red side. So now with the chip open, by the way, chip was open as well in the previous game, right? It was not banned out at all. Yeah. I guess chip is just not a good pick in the Africa region right now. We got the Mathilda over the chip. And I have to say for the Mathilda at least, especially after the games that we've witnessed, the matches that we've casted, Mathilda's been great. Very, very high win rate, great utility, amazing mobility. And you were talking earlier about how these roamers play a big part in the gold lane. And I think Mathilda especially has that impact. Not only can you provide so much more damage, you know, with the blooms, especially in the early game, good base damage, you have a lot of base healing, base shielding as well. And
let's go.
That's a Zosk for Wakal LeBron. Okay, we're talking about how he thrives with the creativity of the Lo Yi, with him being able to rotate and find different angles, different flank potential, but that's a Zosk. That's something that stays in place a bit more. It's a very different pick to what we are, you know, accustomed to in our own regions. We've been talking about the Gore, we've been talking about these other picks in the mid lane that have been doing really, really good, but I guess technically Zosk fits into the criteria of mid lane that we were talking about.
You want me to give you a fun fact here? This is just personal little fun fact. I hate playing against Zosk. Like when I was actually on the road for when I was doing the global run on Gord, I would face so many Zast over here, like in the Philippines for some reason at that time. And this was, you know, a couple of years ago. But Zast.
Were you a Zosk main too? Are you just a Zosk Lord guy, dude?
Okay. No, I was not a Zask main. I could not get to the point where I was playing Zask, man. But I would always have to play against him, and the way that he utilized, you know, his ultimate, the Hive clones, right? The Hive clones and the kit. It was so tilting because you'd Mystic Gush, and then he would just kind of utilize that. So I'm wondering now in this competitive play, it's been so long since I've seen a Zask, right? And then we know the way he works with the Inspire. Is it enough to work against this, even the first 3 picks they have here? Interesting bans, by the way, the last phase here. Hanabi taking out Melissa and Leslie, 3 gold laners, just getting the ban stick for now. And so, wow, a Mia comes out to play instead.
Okay, the Mia.
This looks like a very, by the way, I just want to say, this looks like a very old draft happening. Like, these are like the OG heroes of MLBB.
Oh man, and take a look at that. The Karina as well picked up. I think this is a great pick, by the way, for Jimmy, right? Very, very good adjustment. We were talking about how usually, especially in the previous game, the red side was used by Namibia to just adjust to the picks coming in from Mauritius. But it seems even here, they're doing the exact same thing. They're just reacting to some of these picks coming in from Mauritius. And the Karina pick works great up against the Sun and also the Mia. That's what it does. Like good, like that's where it's good. But then up against the Nana, especially if you get caught by the Molina, by the boomerangs as well, you're really going to suffer. But that's why they got D-Man. That's why they have that mobility in Robin too. So they've covered up a lot of the weakness points that this composition has. And we'll see though as to how Mauritius actually finish off the draft here, wrap up their own draft. It looks like Malekith will be getting that Roger again. That was Roger that was able to get a triple kill in game number 1. But this time it's a bit different. This time there's a lot of immunity as well, and mainly it's from Jimmy on those basic attacks. You need to use your abilities to get through to him, and technically the Lycan Pounce is a way to do that. But then if you jump on him, Jimmy can just walk back to Wakao LeBron, get the guiding win to Wakao LeBron, who will be standing there in that turret alien form of his.
Menacingly.
Right? And then a penalty zone comes in, and all the basic attacks that they have will be turned around against them, just like what happened in game number 1 with the Vengeance. Now it's only one guy, all right? It won't be a Carmilla and a Taruza with the Vengeance, but still that Vengeance is going to play a huge part up against the full DPS kind of composition of Mauritius. Not as the saving grace, definitely, in terms of damage output.
It is, you know, and it's funny because when it's funny because this is so enjoyable to break down these drafts, Mirko. Like, I mean, you know when it gets to the point when you're like deep into MLBB season and like you see how stuck the meta is in some parts, right? So like this is so great to kind of theorize how is this going to work as we jump into the game number 2 here. Again, it's match point for Namibia versus Mauritius. We'll see if we get to a game 3. Very interesting lineups. Even Lil Jeff rolling with the focusing mark on this oh man, it's Lil Jeff and the I'm having a mind blank here. I was about to say, this is a focusing mark, Lil Jeff. And
don't worry, Naisu.
Dude, you know what? It's that time, man. It's that time of the evening.
It's that time. But it's okay, Naisu, because I myself I'm finding myself kind of blanking out as well, because it seems like I was actually thinking about it just after watching. Lil Jeff, though, with a shove, gets a 2-man knock-up. Unable to find anything else, though. They're just going to rotate here, but they have a couple of swaps, a couple of role swaps, actually. Ara is no longer in the XP lane. It's Jin Dragneil, the former roamer in game number 1 on that Atlas, now on the Sun. Lil Jeff, the Kagura from game number 1, now on the Tigreal. So I completely understand you, right? I'm definitely trying to process the roles as well, because it has shifted completely. Lil Jeff just face checks in that bush, gets caught by the damage, forced to flicker out, but is not able to path around the wall to get straight into the turret and will be taken down. First blood for Namibia, and it's for Wakao LeBron on the Zosk.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like, I had to like take a moment for a second as we got into the game to really like break it down, right? Because Jin Dragneil was the Atlas earlier, and you had Ara in the XP lane earlier, now in the mid lane. So like there's just been this whole switch up, and we'll see if this actually ends up working out for them better. But right now, that first blood being on the board, going to the Wakao LeBron. So Robin will go ahead and kind of poke them down a little bit, but this is going to be the first objective coming up. Jimmy's going to go ahead and start it up. You can see a lot of these level 4s coming online, being available for Namibia, and it looks like there might not be much of a contest here from Mauritius. Let's see if they're able to play it out, but that's already a half-health turtle. Wow.
Ooh. A lot of damage placed down. Dominator's Ascent as well going to be used up to zone Malekith away from this turtle. Free turtle, no contest. Great zoning by Namibia as Robin strides through that mid lane with the guiding win. Getting some of that pressure relieved off of Wakao LeBron, who needs that pressure relieved off of him. He doesn't have mana, so he'll just clear that way with the basic attacks.
Yeah, and it gets scary when you get to a point where, you know, any Zask, once they pop that Inspire and they have, you know, some of the items they need, especially that Feather of Heaven being available to them, the damage output is quite insane, and it kind of takes people by surprise too. And it's almost like you have to kill the guy twice because, you know, just the way that he works. Hold on.
Vengeance gonna be popped in by D-Man to survive there. Jin Dragneil so far doing a good job on the Sun in this lane, but in the top lane, that's a good circling eagle to knock him up. Forced to use the ultimate to escape. And now it's Malekith who's trying to just relieve that pressure off of him. But look at Jimmy, who's rotated up top. Wakao LeBron, the damage down. Goes in for the Dominator's Ascent. Meanwhile, up top, that's going to be the full barrage, locking him down and instantly doing some damage. Jimmy with the assassination in the back. One more shot is all he needs onto Malekith, but he's still able to space out properly under that turret. Spider 911 shoves this wave back onto Malekith to try to get some more shots onto that turret shield, which he does get a little bit more. Get some sustain as well as he hits Malekith, gaining that passive sustain. And that's really why the Ixia is really good, right? You get so much sustain on top of your all-ins, and Malekith, flicker by Robin into the circling eagle. Malekith still able to escape. Robin, as a roamer, he's still able to assassinate the jungler in below the tier 2.
Robin is having a hell of a series this time around, isn't he? First on the Camarilla, now here on the Matilda. And they still want to battle it out, but D-Man, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to get that kill, but that is going to be a resource taken right now. Namibia really just kind of dominating this early game already. Trapping him under the tier 1 turret even.
Good Molina to try to force Wakao LeBron out, and the guiding wind gets him back to safety. He's still hovering over in front of the frontliners. Wakao LeBron, very brave of him. Flicker and an implosion, catching 2 members, shoving him back in onto Aras. But look at the damage coming through, back again with the circling eagle. They trade Wakao LeBron, but Ara is going to be taken down as well by D-Man. And it seems from Namibia, it's all fine and dandy that they didn't get the turtle. Not instantly, at least. Up top, Spider is doing work, getting the turret for free, no contest. And it does seem like Malekith, at least, will be rotating up top and will be conceding this turtle, second turtle, over to Namibia.
So, I mean, when you're looking at this Spider just pushing pretty much by himself up there, works really well. And even the fact that the Corrosion Scythe was the first pickup, and then you have the Weakness Finder emblem, that is, like you said, what makes the Ixia such a threat, because it's usually, now that you have the Matilda on point too, you're pretty much safe, right, with the Guiding Wind and the way that can work out here. Oh, hold on, Lil Jeff.
With a shove, that's an ultimate as well by Ara. Molina Blitz committed down. Dominators descent again, and they're zoned away from it. Wakao LeBron so far doing a whole lot of work. Robin bringing Wakao LeBron all the way to the back, but he doesn't have the Dominators descent. Remember, he's got to respect that. And he does. He is able to get out, but Jin Dragnil's doing some good work in the bottom lane, just taking that turret, at least a trade for this mid lane tier 1. Full barrage though, under the turret at tier 2, and that's gonna be the execution as well. Jimmy picks up a double kill, gets caught on the Molina, and is able to still escape for a bit, but Malekith gets rid of him with the Lycan form. Now D-Man trying to go for a trade as well, but doesn't have the penalty zone to lock him down. Meanwhile, Wakao LeBron is just on that turret, basic attacking again to death, with Spider 911 doing the same thing. But take a look at Jin Dragnil, who's still in the bottom lane, just split pushing.
He's doing his thing, man. You know, he's 0-0-0, and that's what you want to do pretty much on a Sun. Eventually, you're going to have quite a few items. 1v1?
I don't think he's going to be able to make this work, especially... Oh, Spider gets brought back into the circling eagle, guiding Win. He's forced to flicker out of it. As expected now, Jin Dragnil very, very low. Wakao LeBron goes in, Dominators descent doing some damage. Molina Blitz catching the full barrage right into the back, and Malekith will pay for it. Good implosion and the shove back as well, but the guiding Win is able to be popped in. Not in time, though, for anyone to pop it in as well. No one taps on the guiding Win, and it's a good trade over. 2 for 1 for Mauritius.
Oh man, it looks like just there's, you know, these moments where there is going to be a good team fight for Mauritius, but unfortunately they're not able to capitalize on what they have. I mean, they need a little bit more time with the lineup. They have Dark Master, very similar situation he was in previously, where he's having a tough game, right? And really, when it's that point for these gold laners, you kind of just need time. Circling Eagle going to be used, but probably just to shove Ara back. Whoa! The damage.
Maybe he wants to just assassinate him. He goes in for the guiding wind offensively to the front. Arise is still able to survive. That passive, though, has been procced. And now Namibia are marching down into the mid lane. He's going for it. Lil Jeff is walking up with the conceal as well, but get canceled out there. Jin Dragnil in the midst of it all, still able to escape right now as Jimmy goes into the back as well, but the implosion catches him. Good transformation as the penalty zone will be used to stop them from going for anything else. Jin Dragnil caught in the damage and will be taken down by Wakao LeBron. A fight, but the circling eagle knocks him up, and Robin is able to survive for so long, delaying the inevitable. Him getting picked off and baiting Malekith in for the rest of the team to deal with him.
This is what I was talking about, man. Mauritius, it looks like, you know, there's times where it's like, you know, they got some fight in them, they have to disengage, they back off, but then Namibia ends up falling and dying a couple times here. So, you know, as you take a glimpse at this, it's really the items that need to fall into place. Again, Dark Master only has a Demon Hunter sword. All he has is that, you know, a DHS. He needs so much more time to catch up on here. And it looks like, again, they could find setup potential right now to Lil Jeff. He's rolling with that focusing mark. That's 6% additional damage that he can use, because he only has Dominance Ice, right? So these are major things that we need to look at as we approach that first Lord Dance. It might be better for Mauritius to go ahead and continue to farm up, buy time the best they can.
What happened to Jin Dragneel in the bottom lane? That's a trade out of the circling eagle to knock him out with the Dominator's Descent and the full barrage too. Little Jeff with the flicker and the implosion. Now shoving them back. That's a flame shot as well. The Molina not catching them in the back, and Spider is able to pop them with a nature, getting the sustain back up. And Malekith goes in with the Lycan pounds, finding one. And he's going for more onto Robin. That's a double kills. Macau LeBron pops in a desperate recall in the bush, but gets caught. Malekith able to find a triple kill just like he was able to in game number 1. Jimmy walking forward, but only onto Little Jeff. That's the roamer, and it's a maniac for Malekith.
Oh, just as I was saying, Mauritius has been finding these little moments of brilliance, and that happens to be another one stacking up. So, you know, if Namibia doesn't want to like let this slip out of their hands, they got to quit letting things like that happen, because all this is doing is going back to that premise of Dark Master is getting the time he needs to get the items he has to. He was a little bit gapped, but now with moments like this, they're doing a lot better to stay in this game. And with this Lord up, so this makes it seem like Namibia can't actually freely just take the Lord, right? They can't actually just force it in, because they actually have to respect the fighting potential being thrown and shown by Mauritius. So some more item pickups happening at this point of the game. Look at the setup potential already happening though. Downside this, Lil Jeff goes in.
Onto our Lil Jeff with the conceal. Spider 911 able to cancel it out right now as Robin jumps in as well, but that's gonna be the Dominator's Descent, locking Lil Jeff down. He gets an implosion onto 2 members with Jin Dragoneel going for some damage as well. Malekith, what happened in the back? He was able to dive and get an assassination on the Spider, but Jimmy is doing the same thing, but Jin Dragneel so far is able to sustain for now. The clones gonna get wiped, but so far it's a 2-for-1 still in favor of Namibia. Malekith now with Lycan form onto Jimmy, but will just be able to deal a bit of damage with the Lycan bounce. Remember, immune with the first skill.
Oh man, even so, again, looking at the exchanges here, it's still the fact that neither team can commit to the Lord just yet. Again, a good attempt. Little Jeff trying to find his own setup. Mid lane, Malekith.
Getting knocked up. D-Man has the penalty zone. Will he decide to go for it though? Retribution used defensively, still a penalty zone committed. Is trying to read out if anybody was in there in the bush, gets stunned up, and Molina blitz, and Malika goes in as well. Full barrage with a flicker into the back, but look at the chase down from Malekith. Godlike picked up, and now he goes for more into the midst of it all. Implosion by Lil Jeff with a shove back as well, and now it's going to be Jimmy, who's going to be shredded down by Malekith, who's an absolute monster in game number 2.
Oh, and he just ended it with tanking the shots and gets the tier 1 down. And now they're going to be able to go ahead and start this Lord up, take it most likely as well, as 3 members are still down. And this is a good time to take a look at the items once again, guys, because we were talking about how much time needed to be out. Look at this, 10,000 gold in the hands of Malekith. Like, he has so much gold. He has enough gold for the rest of the team here. And that's why he is such a big threat. We saw this in the previous game too. Again, Malekith had a great game on the Roger in game 1. It's just they couldn't catch up in time from the momentum that was already set from Namibia. So this is a really good timing here for Mauritius. And now that they've garnered themselves the lead in terms of gold, they have the Lord now and marching in the bottom side. They're actually in a really good position to close out, at least into the base, at least get some base turrets if they can. Again, we're gonna have to see how they play it out. Namibia is gonna stop the Lord in its tracks before it even gets to the tier 2, and they'll work on it, but they have to get back to defend their base to deal with this push now from Mauritius. How do they deal with it? They're gonna go ahead and start to poke up on this top side.
Defensive Dominator's Descent there, used up by Wakao LeBron already. Unfortunately for Namibia, they're able to actually manage the waves properly thus far. Still another enhanced mini wave though. Lord buffed mini waves coming down into the mid lane. Malekith trying to look for that angle to possibly go for another maniac this game, because so far, I think for Namibia, Naisu, the lack of purifies is definitely hurting them. Lil Jeff conceal. Has the implosion, finds one, only one though. Gets a shot, but it gets 2, and Amelita Blitz is able to do some damage. Penalties on to the back line with a 3-man circling eagle to Malekith. Dashes forward, Spider 911 doing the same thing with the flicker, but is unable to find enough damage to take Malekith down. Still 2-for-1 in favor of Mauritius. Dark Master pops in that moonlight, the hidden moonlight, to escape and is able to disengage.
Yeah, again, you know, you see those team fights unfold, Mirko, and you see all that damage potential, and are they going to chase Malekith?
Seems like they are going to do that. Malekith Still able to run away for now. Has the immortality. Good transformation into the Melina Blitz. Spider 911 looking for one last hit onto Malika to at least get the immortality down. But he's still able to survive.
Okay, so as I was saying, Malekith is having a hell of a game, man. From game 1 now to game 2, this is very just an amazing game performance on Roger, and he's able to pull things off that are really keeping them into this game and possibly leading to a game 3. So again, this leads it to Darkmaster now being to the point where he's got a couple items that he needs. So actually, if they find it in team fight and Lil Jeff just finds an implosion on one, it could even just be one member. Getting that numbers advantage by just getting a -1 is already huge, you know, for this lineup from Mauritius. And as they get prepped up, we're 10 seconds away from this Lord. They're in a great position, not to mention, with everything being focused on Malekith, he has an immortality now. So he's got a little bit more time if he does go down, which allows the team to set up here. So you can see this. They're actually going to put Demon there on the bottom, near that tier 2. Just keep him planted there, I guess. So they have the information they need, and look at what's happening. Malekith just going on this Lord right away.
And look at the other side. They're actually going to go on to Wakala Braun, who still has the Dominator's Descent. Gets the photo as well. Take a look at the full barrage. And a dive as well from Lil Jeff, actually. A split-up fight as Wakala Braun tries to run away, but Malekith goes into the Lycan form, trying to chase him down. The CC is good, but the Lycan bounce into the backline will still be able to find its mark. Still, though, that Flask of the Oasis gets him to safety with the guiding win. And somehow, someway, Wakala Braun gets out alive, despite being caught in the bad spot. Meanwhile, on the bottom lane, D-Man, it seems he won't be able to get out of this one. He can't pop the Vengeance in time, and Jin Dragneel just takes him out.
Oh, this is huge, right? This is huge for them, for Mauritius to get them to a game 3. They find moments. They've been finding moments to stay in this game, and now with everything happening, really on the initiations of Malekith as well, to keep them from getting just swept out of the series so far. Now they're going to put the pressure here on this side of the base, and Lord up on the top side. They're going to make work for the rest of these base turrets. Malekith will go ahead and walk the Lord in on top. So Namibia, they have to respond to this. And this is the time for them to really see if they have enough to defend into the base, to keep things together. Again, they do have that full barrage going to be available. We'll see how they play it out. Lord's going to be worked on, though. But the turrets will go down to the mid lane. And now Mauritius, eyes set on the base bottom turret pushed in. What will Namibia do here?
Circling Eagle into the back, knocking 3 up, flickering defensively as well as Jin Dragneel gets the claw now, but will not be able to engage. Not just yet. Still hovering over. Jin Dragneel finally going in for some damage onto D-Man, but that's only just the frontliner. Robin with the guiding win, trying to create an angle of attack, and so far Mauritius have been able to siege down all 3 base turrets. Looking for more as Lil Jeff continues to posture up forward, waiting for that implosion flicker combo that he wants to use to end this game. But so far, wow, Namibia have been able to defend for now. They live to see another day.
Conceal was going to be used from Lil Jeff. I mean, he is half health. He's got an immortality. Darkmaster wasn't there as well. So they're going to kind of wait it out here. But I guess my question is for Namibia, if they want to turn things around again, they find themselves at a gap. Their base fully exposed. It's really them utilizing this full barrage combination and being able to pull that off, especially having the guiding wind available. And this is also up to D-Man. When you get to this point where you're defending in your base, you need to be able to land that penalty zone, lock people down here. But right now, too, I feel like at this point of the game, this is where Karina kind of falls off a little bit. When you haven't had a massive kind of snowball opportunity, it's hard for her to even get into these fights, to get into these engages. So Jimmy's having a hard time really finding the right targets before he's dead, and that's why he picks up the Holy Crystal. Hold on, here's the fight.
Well, Blitz already. A few of these resources commit, even Jin Dragneel using that ultimate and now sending a few of his clones to zone them in the front. But this is a very risky move. Implosion into the backline, but look at Jimmy, who's still able to go into the backline with a penalty zone as well. That's a great, insane maneuver. The full barrage catches all of them with a re-engage. Malika still with immortality, jumps into the Lycan form, but will lose out on the immortality. And they go in for the chase with Malika still able to escape. They are able to disengage while also simultaneously going for the Evolved Lord. Darkmaster, all this time, it was a 4v5 inside of the base, and now Mauritius have the Evolved Lord in their hands, spawning in the mid lane.
See, this is crazy because, yeah, they sent Dark Master to get the Lord there while the whole time they did that. And I saw the full barrage down, but there was just not enough damage. You know, and I'm not sure, there's just not enough happening, or, you know, Spider 911 is not able to get that full barrage to its full potential, really. And it's tough because when that doesn't happen, the damage just drops off the cliff. And that's what's happening. Again, it was 5 versus 4, man, and then they weren't really able to pull things off the way they wanted to, but they are going to be able to clear this out pretty well. They get rid of the Lord at least. They have to manage these powered up waves and keep it together. But for now, Namibia at least keeps himself in the game. They buy some more time. This is our longest game so far up to this point, Mirko. Almost 20 minutes in. We've seen a couple of Lords, and it could be up for Mauritius to actually still press the situation. Looks like it's going to happen.
Conceal, used up already. That's the Athena shield procced. He does have the implosion, but no flicker this time around, as the circling eagle will be used to disengage, but Lil Jeff goes into the back line with the implosion, gets cancelled out as the full barrage does its work into the back. Malekith has been assassinated. Jimmy goes and finds Ara with immortality. The passive still intact, but no! Jimmy gets a double kill, and it might just be a turnaround from Namibia in the 20-minute game. Dark Master engaged on Spider, gets the guiding win to gap close and to eliminate Dark Master from the Land of Dawn. In the 20th minute, those are some big death timers.
Oh man, and this they just keep Wakao LeBron there. Go ahead, post up in the base, do his thing while the rest of the team marches into Jin, left alone to defend the base in the mid turret.
4 members down, Jin Dragneel. He can only just use his clones. Robin will lose his immortality, but the full barrage catches him. The stun as well. Jimmy will be able to execute him. Look at the waves coming down, though. The mini wave is there for Namibia, right for the base. And they will be able to end this with a clean sweep and a beautiful comeback.
Man, what a turnaround. Like, as I was saying, into that defense, all they had to do was buy some more time, continually have those defenses, and then look for a way to get that mistake. And that's exactly what Namibia did there. Again, this should have been a game 3. We should have been going to a game 3.
Agreed.
But they held it down with the lineup that they had. And it's just, it's crazy that they were able to finally pull it off. And it was some of the positioning that they just punished over, you know, again and again and again. Think how many times they actually defended in their base. You know, and finally utilizing that full barrage to its full potential was what was needed to even take down Malekith there. I know we'll take a look at the highlights and everything in just a second here, but that's the thing, man, is like, you have to respect the fact that even when things weren't going their way at some points, they were able to hold it down. But before that, let's take it back to game number 1 here, where things started off in the series, right? For Namibia, they had a very interesting lineup this time around. We saw some things like this before, but the Hanabi ended up working out for them overall throughout game number 1. But Mauritius actually started trying to do things with this Atlas. Remember when we went to the draft, this was a priority pick for Jin Dragneel. He picked it up first pick, giving up the Luoyi. And as you watch these highlights, you're going to see how punishing it is to go against a Luoyi with a Hanabi and a Curse of Blood from Robin on this Carmilla. The diversion usage as well is something you always have to consider. This was a trip up to the top lane with that diversion. Meanwhile, here in the bottom lane, Jimmy does get punished. But overall, the arc here for Namibia was just, they were just playing around how much space they could move around the map with. And even the Curse of Blood, like I said, that's landing, and then you have a Hanabi just kind of unleashing in the back. That is tough to deal with, right? That's so hard to deal with if you're the enemy team. And even in this game, like I said, game number 1, man, Malekith had a hell of a game, hell of a series. He really did. Even back in game 2, the one we just saw, he was doing so well on this Roger, but it was unfortunate because even in game 1, this was a snowball for Namibia that just could not be controlled. Dark Master got shut down on this Melissa pick, working against 2 Vengeances even, and it was tough for him. It was tough for Mauritius here to deal with. And again, it was great to see the Atlas find some sets, work with the Kagura, but overall it just did not pay off, and it was not worth kind of taking in that first pick situation. Again, you're going to see it, Malekith gets these good positions, gets these, you know, triple kills, the maniacs that we see him do before, but eventually it all comes crashing down. And Spider 911 on this Hanabi, like we said, was able to just pull things off so well because of the fact that he could rely on the fact that, hey, we have Robin on this Carmilla. We have Demon able to set things up with the penalty zone. This is what the ending exchange right there with Wakala LeBron. He used that diversion to come back on this bottom side and cut them off, utilizing that wave of minions to end game one. And, you know, that was a big gap in that game. That was nearly, what, 13,000 lead that they had. And they really punished. And then we get to game two. And this is a very interesting lineup for both teams. Heroes that we don't typically see, like the Zask pop-up. You know, you even see the fact that there is a Karina who was at a point in time always picked up, but not so much anymore. And we saw some weaknesses here from the way Karina kind of falls off towards the later portion of the game, but luckily they were able to keep things together. And this was also interesting to see the Zask, like how this works in this game. It was very strong early on. Lil Jeff, props to him. He did have some really good implosions and conceal plays throughout this game. But like I said, you know, they were working against a lead for the longest time. And they kind of built up continuously throughout the game till eventually Mauritius will have a lead. But Namibia, you know, we're going to see them defend time and time again. Full barrage is great, like in this early part of the game, especially when some of those defensive items aren't locked in yet. But you'll see where that damage kind of falls off a little bit. And same thing with Zask. You know, Zask's damage early on was very threatening, but eventually it took a lot more for it to work. And, you know, there was also even a lane swap that we saw here from Mauritius in terms of like roles with the players. You know, previously we saw Ara in the XP lane. Now Ara was in the mid. Jin Dragneel was roaming. Now he's in the XP lane. And things kind of, they tried to still work around the fact that Malekith was on that Roger, right? That was a full barrage canceled out. Nice job there, of course. And this was the start of things looking like at least Mauritius was in this game, possibly to go to game 3. But still, ultimately, it was the same story, right? They were just trying to buy time also to allow Dark Master to farm up the way he needed to. Malekith was able to set so many things up. And, you know, unfortunately, as the game goes on, it was just very tough for them to kind of pull through, because there was a point in time where Namibia was pretty much almost in the base, you know, almost in the base to work through it. But they kept making mistakes. Mauritius found punishes, and you'll see it. But this was overall just a hell of a brawl, man.
For sure. The fact that, you know, they were able to come back initially from Namibia's early game dominance was already so impressive, right? And we gotta give props to Malekith and I think Lil Jeff. Lil Jeff was on the Kagura in game number 1, and now on the Tigreal. It does seem like he is more comfortable on these kinds of picks if he's the initiator, if he's the one that starts off the fights. And for Malekith, I think we've also seen how good he is in game number 1. Now in game number 2, it definitely feels like with a little bit more synergy with the composition and a little bit more comfort, I would say, for some of their players on these new roles, Malekith has only gotten better from game number 1 to game number 2. And I want to emphasize the build coming in from Malekith. I think both of these games, he really likes to go for the hyper carry build over the usual assassin brawly build, right? So there are 2 builds right now for the Roger. There's a Windtalker with the Endless Battle. You deal a little bit more true damage, but you're more of a chaser. You're kind of an assassin almost, right? You brawl and you assassinate people in the back. Here, Malekith decided to go for the attack speed build, which is the hyper carry build. If you are placed in a position where you need to carry, this is a build to go for. And I think Malekith showed it in this game. Corrosion Scythe, Golden Staff, and the DHS. Spider 911, a lot of these times, even when he does get the Wind of Nature, you know, he does pop the Wind of Nature in time, it's not enough. Malekith just deals so much damage, and he's able to stay. He's already dealt so much damage before the Wind of Nature gets popped in that the Wind of Nature really doesn't have an impact. And all throughout the game, this is the biggest weakness for this build with the attack speed build for Malekith on the Roger, is the fact that you're not mobile. You're not really that mobile with this build, right? You deal a lot of damage. You can slow down your opponents, but without the Windtalker, without the Great Dragon Spear, you are vulnerable. But he survives every single time. Yes, sometimes with the help of the team. Ara is amazing at disengages, by the way. Shoutouts to him. Lil Jeff as well. Great with the disengages, but just with the shoves. But props to Malekith. He was really good this game. He almost carried this game and forced the game 3.
Yeah, it was great. And this is, you know, that defense and everything that They kept it together. This would eventually lead them. This is where, you know, they sent Dark Master to go solo that Lord, and it eventually leads them to this game-winning defense. This is a pressured moment too, because you got to clear these lanes. You got to keep things together. You have to get prepped and ready before that Lord, of course. But they win this fight. They already cleared it, and this is where things kind of fell apart. Like you said, with Malekith's build, with the way that he played, it was just unfortunate because even for Jimmy had to take a little more time to find the right targets. Like he has to kind of, you know, weave into these team fights the right way. Otherwise, he's just going to get blown up. You know, so even at that point, again, they can just leave Kyle LeBron. He does his thing, clears the waves, and then they go push it in. And this is where, like I said, Spider 911 had a much better series this time than what we saw yesterday. And a lot of that has to do with just the overall team setting him up for success for this, right? So, and I think a lot of that too had to deal with just Robin. Man, Robin was on point on the roams here, especially from Carmilla to the Matilda. And I think it really played a part. Again, that Carmilla was clutch with the lineup that they had in game number one. You know, it paid off for a reason. And, you know, once we get to the interview, I think it will be Robin that we get to talk to. But that's the thing, man. It's the thing about the lineups that we saw in this match, I wouldn't say it's as crazy as the stuff that we saw yesterday, Mirko, like in the second match, you know. But it was still very interesting because we got to still see, like, hey, Zask, Kagura pop up. And, you know, this is the thing that I was talking about with mid lane, like, that you can still kind of bring these heroes, or let's say non-meta heroes in a way, to the table and try to make them work. Unfortunately for the Kagura, it didn't work in that game number one. But the combination with an Atlas is actually great. Like, it could have worked out really well, whether that was a Kagura or whether that was a Louis Yi. And, you know, for this matchup alone, I think you can still say, yeah, there was great adjustments that were made. We saw the improvements just from yesterday and how they kind of fell into place today. And, you know, it's still making me wonder, like, eventually, hopefully in Casablanca, man, we get to see some assassin jungles, right? Because so far we've seen a lot of the Roger. You know, that counts. You know, he's pretty much an assassin.
He's a damage dealer.
He counts. Yeah, he's a damage dealer. But, you know, we want to see what's been banned out, man. We want to see those Hanzos, those Lings, those Grangers.
This is why we need to ask Robin, why did he steal that away from us, right? I mean, the Ling and the Granger might have come through, might have been picked up from Malekith. He was doing so good on the Roger, and that's definitely my question. I'll ask him later, obviously.
I'll let you ask him that, yeah.
But the Ling and the Granger banned out. They already knew